Ready? Everyone ready? Everyone's ready.
Let's do this. What?
This is the Elevated Grapes Podcast.
Elevated Grapes Podcast.
With your host, Sethi.
Your host, Sethi.
And Stylist Rashi Bindra.
It's time to get started.
Let's talk fashion, shall we?
All right, welcome to Elevated Grapes. I am your host, Sethi. These chairs are a little bit uncomfortable.
What are you doing?
I'm going to find my spot. Don't worry, let me figure my shit out. You just tell them who you are.
I am,
Once again, we're going to start one more time. Welcome to Elevated Grapes. I am your host, Sethi.
I am fashion consultant and stylist Rashi Bindra. We are your co-host for today's Elevated Grapes episode.
Why are you saying that second part for no reason all the time?
I have no
We are
idea.
your co-host. Like, why are we doing that now?
I like saying that we are co-host.
Oh, so you're going to do this thing every single time now?
Cha-ching! Yes.
And now there's sound effects to it?
Cha-ching! Yes.
So can we edit that piece out? Yes. Okay, please and thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so today's topic, Rashi's going to introduce it this time because she's a co-host now, so she's allowed to...
So wait, I was not a co-host before.
You were just stylist before, remember?
I thought this was our thing.
Yeah, but now you made it co-host, so if you're
I
co-hosting...
made it official.
Okay, so they'll officially introduce the topic.
So guys, we are going to be talking about Instagram fashion, and that can take two takes to it. One of them being, how Instagram has evolved as a platform for fashion and art, and how we have all these like emerging fashion designers and like artists and influencers, which it's a topic that we have touched on, quite a bit, and it still continues to be of relevance. But I think the other part that we will touch on is that how Marc Jacobs, and I love Marc Jacobs, I'm so excited with him, how Marc Jacobs actually did his first post-Instagram fashion show, meaning that the way he did his fashion show defied all the rules of Instagram, and that's why I love him even more. So take it away.
So let's talk about that. So when you say he defied all rules of Instagram, what did he do that was different, and how did it impact what you see now in the Instagram game?
So if you
with respect to fashion.
Yeah, so again, I love fashion. I love going to fashion shows. I love seeing fashion shows. It's always very, very magical. It has been since I was
Like the Wonderful World of Disney?
Better. Even as a kid, I'll never forget.
You're like a super Disney fan, and for you to say that,
I know.
I'm still not comfortable.
Can you stop moving? Thank you.
I'm going to figure this out.
Okay. So even as a kid, so when I first saw my first fashion show, and this was like, I think I was like 10 or 12. Actually, no, I was like 10. I was like blown away. I thought it was like the most beautiful, magical thing on earth. And then when I saw it as I got older, and this is not just watching it on TV, actually attending these shows, I still had the same feeling. And I still do now.
So we're not talking about fashion television with Jeannie Becker and showing shows around the world.
We're talking about
like Rashi
actually
being there live.
Yes, actually going and watching these fashion shows. Because like we can see like fashion television and stuff, right? But it's just not the same feeling. At least for me, I'm not taking that away from anybody else.
Sure. And which was a great. Just a side note, that was a great show that helped a lot of people be into fashion without even having to work for it, right?
I learned so much from that show. And okay, so I was very shy growing up. I never thought I'd be where I am today and doing like what I am and working in fashion the way I worked. Like I used to just oh my God, I want to do this, but I was so scared and I was so shy growing up. But I learned like what you guys tell me, that the way I know certain things, I actually learned it from fashion television, just like watching it for hours and hours. So anyways, going back to my point, I've seen quite a bit of fashion shows. I love watching it. And then over the years, with the Instagram especially, what's happened is that the way fashion shows, it started being less creative for a while because you wanted that perfect Instagram picture to put it on Instagram, right? And you wanted them people to follow and like and give that aha moment. When they got creative with their presentations,
when you say they, who's they?
Designers, right? Because to put on a fashion show, whether it's in New York, whether it's in London, Paris, Milan, it's very, very expensive for a designer. You want that rate of return on it, right? So that being said, you also want that buzz, that spark, that like social media PR that happens. Not not always with paid ads, but also a bit of or organically, right? When people are like following you. So anyways, that being said, if you notice any designer who is presenting at fashion shows, their photos of their clothing is in a very very specific manner. So if you don't attend a show, you don't feel like you're missing out on what's the trend is, because it will be up soon, and you can now go on stories and live stream and all of those things. So what's been happening with that is that the attendance of people attending fashion shows have become lower. And the problem with that is, again, fashion shows are very expensive, not only in terms of the fee that you pay and the presentation aspect of it, so outside the whole production, but also as a designer to have your clothes designed in a certain way, to have models have their fittings, hair and makeup, tell a story, right? And make sure that you stand out. All these things do add up. So what Marc Jacobs did this time was he did his fashion show in a way where if you missed it, too bad for you, because those images are not the perfect Instagram images that people want, and that
so what about the professional photographers that are there and hired to be there to take those pictures?
So what he did was he actually had some dancers.
Mm-hmm.
So the models would be walking out in, I think, threes, and I'm just gonna check the fact, because I don't want to.
Yes, we want to make sure the stats are correct.
Exactly. Okay, so what he did was he had a bunch of models, actually. So not just 2 or 3, a group of models.
They walk out in groups.
Yeah, and they were walking out on the runway, and then they had a bunch of dancers that jumped through them, and they were twisting and they were turning, and
they must have had ribbons, this and that, just
everything.
100% clear shot.
Exactly, and then even the way the jackets were draped on the models and the handbags, they were not perfectly draped. The idea is that because if you are walking and you have someone who's doing a jumping jack in front of you, your outfit is going to slip.
So let me ask you a question about this. So just from you design fashion shows too. So think about even the experience for the guest that's sitting there. If you're coming to see the new designs that Marc Jacobs is coming out with, and all this other, I'm going to call it noise, is going around on the runway with the models, then you're also not getting a clear vision being there of what you're seeing.
That's where there is a bit of a difference, right? Because the first question was, where are you even supposed to look?
Yeah, where's what's your attention towards?
So chaotic. And I think what happens is that and again, it goes back to the point of when you're sitting and watching a fashion show, even when there's chaos around you, just as humans, how we are, your eyes can quickly take on those details of that one outfit, jump on the second outfit, and at the same time, you can start thinking of how this outfit can.
Not necessarily if your attention span it doesn't sit in one spot. If for example, if there's something happening over in front of me here, but yet there's something happening to the left of me over there, and something my mind's gonna be my eyes gonna be shifting, so I'm not gonna get a true clear picture.
So before Instagram and before social media, actually, before even Facebook and stuff like that, a lot of fashion shows were not the straight line fashion shows that we see today. They had movement, they had some sort of a presentation, they had some sort of models walking out in groups, and then the architecture of a fashion stage at that time was a lot more grander than what it is today. It's very simple today because you want that clean, here's the full outfit on Instagram.
You don't want anything distorting that image.
So when I say that it was chaotic, I think what I'm trying to say is not that as a person that you cannot sit and understand and watch the show and get swept up in that movement, but if you are a photographer, if you are an Instagram influencer, to get that clean shot is not what you will get from this fashion show. And I think what I enjoyed reading about it, because I could not attend New York Fashion Week this time, is what I really enjoyed reading about this is that we went back to what fashion truly, truly was before the age of social media. Not to say that social media has not helped emerging fashion designers, and I'm always torn, right? Between.
But that's the other side of the coin, right? You could do this, and you're not getting the exposure on social media, which is now it's a lot more impactful than a lot of other advertising campaigns. Are you almost in effect sort of
But see,
taking away
it goes back to,
from the value of what it's giving you too.
but it goes back to also what level of a designer you are and what's
I
your
don't think it
market.
matters because
No, it does
the
matter, right?
competition is
Because
huge in that world. Like
it's
you're as good as your last piece. So
right,
if your last
but
piece is 2 years ago and now you haven't come up with anything that anybody can pick up on, you're in trouble.
yes, that aspect is right.
And
Like
that's across the board in any
that's
industry.
right. But at the same time now, what is Instagram used for as your personal brand? So let's say Mark. So for someone like Marc Jacobs, it's not necessarily used to directly sell to consumers.
Not necessarily his specific account, but other people posting for him is a value to him.
I'll just go back on that. And
Yeah.
then, for example, if you take someone like Chanel only came on Instagram. I think it was like very recently, like 2-3 years ago, or 5 years
But it
ago.
doesn't matter. People
No, no,
posting
no.
Chanel bags everywhere.
No. It's not
Right.
about that. It's not about people posting. What I'm trying to tell you, like, as a brand, if you really go and look into Chanel's Instagram, it's not even about the product on their Instagram. What they have done, like their team, they have made an experience on Instagram. So Chanel is not gonna care. Like they will never go live when they have a fashion show. They will never go like live on their stories and things like that. And they do some of the most beautiful constructed fashion shows ever. They once did a fashion show on the beach. They actually had people sitting and models walking on the beach, and it was so beautiful.
Where
Like
did you see it?
there was a video clip 3 days after the show happened, and that was when it was dropped on. I
So
think YouTube,
hold on. So
right?
is Marc Jacobs' point now not to put anything on Instagram, or is it like is
No.
it after a certain period of time?
His-
That's also okay. I mean,
I don't believe his point is not to put anything on Instagram. I just think his point is not to conform into making a fashion show to suit Instagram. That's two very, very different things.
whereas now, what is the rest of the industry doing based on what your understanding is, or what you're
The
seeing?
same clean cut, shot. So your fashion show presentation is very clean because that way the photographers can take that shot that they want, which you as a designer or your team, I should say, right, will post it on Instagram so people can see the product. It's not also about timing. It's not about, oh, my show happened at 10 a.m. today. I'm posting the pictures at 7 p.m. today. No, it's not even about time. It's just about that perfect image. Designers will still post about their stuff. I'm not saying that's not changing. It's just now they're going towards keeping a fashion show to what it really, really was back in the day, which was an experience. It was in that moment. You're off your phones. You're actually focusing on what the story.
But
the
do you
designer's
think?
trying to tell you.
See, so here's the other side of it. I think if you're trying to do that and you're creating that experience, I think for majority of the folks in that industry now, they're everyone's about Instagram and they want to be the first to show it and they're the first to capture it and share it to the world. I think if you try to create that environment where it's more difficult to get the shot, I think you're gonna end up having more people spending time on their phones trying to get the shot.
No, and here's the thing.
Like, I know if I'm seeing them like, well, I didn't get it. Let me keep my phone up until I
Here's
get it.
the reason I don't 100% agree with that statement was because when you attend a show, like when I'm in New York last September, I was irritated that I had to, do the part of the job where I had to also record the video and watch the fashion show. When you are truly into fashion and you're sitting right in front, you can see the difference between the fabrics, the textile, the construction, the finer details,
But I
which
think,
you will not see if you are.
But I think the people that are there truly for that will do that regardless of whether the show is about Instagram or made for Instagram or not, because that's still their focus. So I don't think that changes.
But then it's okay.
Like I think actually it's more difficult for that person because now it's like, well, now there's ribbons and dancers around. Like I can't even see the things properly.
But okay, so when I say ribbons and dancers and an actual performance happening, it's happening in a way where, again, a model will walk. They have certain timings to walk, right? And then also the type of people that, again, a lot of these international fashion shows like Paris, Milan, New York, London, it's all invite only. You have to be somebody in the industry who can come. When you are to that level, the way you perceive what's happening on that stage is going to be a bit different than an ordinary person. And when I say ordinary, I'm saying a person who just likes to go watch fashion.
Sure, yeah.
Right? And I'm not trying to insult anybody
course.
with that statement. I'm just saying that you have a very different level of expertise. Same way, like when we've gone to fashion shows before. The way I will see something and take everything is very different when you do it, because the way I'm involved in the industry is different than the way you're involved in the industry.
Of course,
and that's got nothing to do with your talent, right? Or your skill set. So that's the thing. And the reason people are talking about the fact that Marc Jacobs did a show where it was actually focused on a show, on an experience, and no one is giving it it's not a negative thing.
No, of course. I'm not trying to point out that it's negative. I'm just trying to point out, unless because there's things, pieces in here that I'm not completely understanding. Because I think that if you're putting on a show, and if your focus is the true fashion buff that you're talking about, that wants to sit and compare the fabrics and all those sort of things, I think they're going to do that regardless. And I think that if you're trying to create an environment where you're trying to put phones away, but you're adding more elements to the show to make it harder to get the shot, the person is going to work that much harder to get the shot that they want. So I think you're actually encouraging them to be more on their phone versus putting it away. And that's I'm looking at the counter potential of this. And again, it's maybe it's just the way it was done. It was done perfectly to avoid any of this. But it's just, if you think about it, if I try to think about it logically, that's what's going to come into my mind is, okay, I appreciate that, but here's the counter to that. Here's probably what I'm thinking is actually happening, because you're not just going to only have fashion buffs for a Marc Jacobs show or anybody's show, for example. Like, there are going to be people in there who are quote unquote influencers, or who want to get into there for the shot, or who want to do it for that reason, for the showcase.
But again, right? Like okay, so from a high level perspective, it's also what's happening in the fashion industry. A lot of designers are being inspired by what fashion was before the
which I think
2000s.
is different. That's also amazing. That is great.
Hold on. So it's also not only the type of designs that they're doing, but now how their campaigns are doing, how they're taking those photos and things like that, and they're kind of hitting back to what fashion was before the 2000s. So what Marc Jacobs did was he when we say that he did a fashion show that kind of defied Instagram, his purpose was not, I'm doing a show to make Instagram people happy and to make my Instagram look beautiful. I'm doing a show
for the show.
Okay. And that's why so even though it was unworkable for social media, okay, in terms of your point, whether they're influencers, whether they're this, whether they're, writers and stylists and bloggers, actual
whatever
things, they all loved it, because they're like, we're watching a fashion show, and that life comes back into it. And like I've always said, I've gone to these high fashion shows, and people are not on their phones. It's not what we see here, where people are on their phones and they're watching. No, they don't care for that shit, because they know the actual stuff will be out. They want to sit and they want to watch.
They want to enjoy it.
And once the show is done, not everybody gets up and runs. They're those who are, let's say, are writers or whatever. They're actually taking down notes.
Of course, yeah.
Right? They have their notebooks, as dorky as this sounds.
Well, also because they don't need a lot of these people that are professionals in the industry. At the end of the runway, have their camera folks doing that for them. They don't need to be having their phones out. They're just making sure that they're capturing the moment. And they have the visuals for it afterwards.
And usually when you are at a show like this, the designers, the booklets that they leave is not just, here's my show. They actually write down which look has what fabrics in it.
Right, yeah.
So that way, what you're doing more so is less being on your phone trying to capture that look. You're
focusing on the actual
focusing on that thing.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
People who are really in the industry, they don't give a shit about posting it on their social media.
I agree with that. And I agree with that. But I think, if the point is to, again, going back to fill seats because these shows are expensive, so, there's only so many of those. You're going to have people that...
But again, right, it goes back to what level of a designer you are. Like, Marc Jacobs does not have trouble filling seats. He has trouble telling people not to come and filtering out what level of an industry expert are you to even attend my show, right?
So his theory is, okay, well, I know I can fill those seats, but I want to create value for those people who are filling those seats versus having it accessible to everybody.
And I want to be talked about, like his show to have articles.
When was this show?
The article came out on Thursday. So I think his show was either Wednesday or Thursday. It was
So recent.
It's New York Fashion Week, so it's still happening.
Right.
So I can't remember, to be honest with you, whether his show was on a Wednesday or a Thursday, but the
either way,
article
it's
came out
within this
Thursday.
last week or so. It's recent.
Very rare, like a few days ago.
Yeah.
So I lost my train of thought of what I was saying. Yeah, like for him to be written about in this sense, this brings him more value because
And we will put the link up so that everyone can take a look at it
because
too.
what happens with this is that the writer is not only now talking about his show, but the way she's talking about it and linking to trends and what's happening, and the other designers who are doing things like that are
So
similar.
do you think?
He's already in that.
Yes, he's. I mean,
Right.
he's at a
Right?
different level than most designers. Like he's
Okay,
established.
I'm not saying Instagram is not good for
Right.
fashion and designers. Like it has changed how emerging designers do things. It has changed how designers with like limited funds will present their stuff. I'm
So-
not saying that it hasn't changed that.
So do you think it makes sense for an emerging designer to take his route or follow his footsteps with this specific idea?
It all depends on your marketing and sales strategy. Like first of all, again, as an emerging designer, when we say emerging, have you been in the business for 5 years? Have you been in the business for 7 years? Is it your first year that's coming out or whatever it is? Also, then what's your focus? Are you trying to do clothing for like a very niche market? Are you doing clothing for like an everyday market? What's your overall sales and strategy plan, right? Because that makes a huge difference how you even present your fashion shows. If you have, I wouldn't even say the word team. I'd say 2-3 people who've come on board to help you, and you are taking a very niche approach to things. Then you don't mind doing a show like Marc Jacobs because you know that you have a lookbook before, so your pieces are already photographed
Available,
in that way, right? And then the fashion show becomes an experience. Now, if you are someone who's just started out, like 1 year, 2 years, and you make each thing, then at this moment, even if you want to do something like Marc Jacobs, you may feel like I can just do a simple, one model down the walkway, back and forth type of thing, and get those pictures and start pushing my brand out. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that is, oh my god, like a terrible thing to do. I'm just saying is that the focus should not always be about having my photo perfectly on Instagram. It's also about creating that experience where as a fashion industry, I won't even say enthusiast, like a fashion industry, what's the word I'm looking for? Like involved person thingy.
Participant.
Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to see that happen for a little
Thanks.
bit. I was going to let it happen for a little bit longer.
I'm gonna throw my phone at you.
Yeah, it's your new thing.
Yeah. So the idea is getting your goal should always be.
You know what we should do at the end of this podcast?
Getting that
attention. We're gonna throw like a poof cloud. I'm gonna not be here anymore. That's what we're gonna do. Okay, then I'll be gone out of the scene, and Rashi will end it by herself. Yeah, you do that. It's your phone that's gonna be wasted, not mine.
I'm gonna patain your nose.
Okay, we don't need to do that here.
I will do that now. Yes. So I
just think for a new fashion designer or a stylist or anybody who's just I don't mean like you're just, even if you're fresh starting or if you've been in the industry a couple of years, I think the exact opposite of what Marc Jacobs is doing is what's important for you to do, because I think that you're still at this point trying to get your brand out there. It's different for someone like that, or so that kind of brand which is so established, and he will automatically have the right writers and the right fashion people in the room to make sure that product is pushed out in the appropriate manner to the right retailers, the other partners that it needs to be. So that'll automatically happen for someone like him if he's doing that. I'm not necessarily doing that because again, I don't totally understand the scope of it, but I think some Instagram is important. But specifically for a newer, and then this is not just specific to the fashion industry. I think it's any industry, because that marketing is invaluable, and especially at this day and age.
I'm not saying Instagram is not important. It
we're talking about social media, not just specifically Instagram.
I'm gonna say specifically Instagram for fashion, because now we're at that age where fashion plays a huge role on a platform like Instagram, because it's very visual, right? Like if you want to find something, you can put in a hashtag. If you want to shop a product, you go on the shop tag and see like what's happening, right? So I'm not saying that Instagram is not important in the fashion world. It plays a huge role, anything that's new, anything that's starting up, first thing they'll go is like, I will need to block the Instagram handle. There are some what do you call it, designers or fashion brands that don't really care about Facebook. It's not that important for them anymore. In fact, they don't even have a Facebook account. They'll put like Instagram, they'll put Pinterest, they'll put like Twitter maybe, and that's it. Or they'll just put two of those because that's very visual, right? That's what you're selling. So I'm not taking away the importance of Instagram in this world. I personally think it's very important. Like I also use it as my portfolio base, but I do understand the need to create now an experience on social media and drive that engagement to your stores, to your products, to your website, to your brand. It's like we're saying, okay, it's something that's gotten a bit more oversaturated. Let's do a bit of a U-turn and kind of go back to basics, which I sometimes think that works out great. You know?
No, and I agree with you, but like I'm speaking more specific to the up and coming designer, the up and coming stylist, or the up and coming person in that industry. I think taking advantage of having that available to you is so important.
You know, sometimes even the up and coming stylists, like I've noticed, if you go on their Instagram, it's not about how many followers they have. They don't post all their work.
But I'm talking about getting the exposure for.
They don't post
their work.
all their work, but if you go on their website, if you go through the other people they've worked with, you end up seeing more of their stuff, right? Because
and this is not to discount the importance of the website or the partnerships that you build in the industry, because that's obviously having those relationships are what really is going to bring you business at the end of the day. But in order to have the brand have the mass appeal or mass market, I think it's a combination.
Yeah, exactly. Like the first thing I said when I had this conversation or during my conversation was, I'm not saying that this is like, I'm not saying Instagram is not good for fashion. I'm not saying that it's not helped like emerging designers. Again, it goes back to, what do you define for yourself as a emerging designer, how far you are into the business, and also where you're and what your niche is. Like I've met designers who are not that active on Instagram, and they're actually very, very, very successful.
Right.
And that's their like
they built a business without the Instagram.
And they're not at the Marc Jacobs level, but they're not at that 2 years, 3 years, 5 years level either. Like they may have started like maybe even 7 years ago, but they're doing well. Like they're making a living, and they're traveling the world, and they're showing their clothes at places. They know their market. That's what it comes down to. What is your market? Who's your niche?
And they know how to get the traction in that market.
And sometimes. And this would be a topic we'll talk about another time, but I've personally noticed when I sometimes take the focus away of what I'm doing for my Instagram account, and I actually do it for me and my work, and I focus on that, the door sometimes that opens.
So here's what we're going to do now. Now I'm going to snap. The poop is going to come up. I'm going to be gone, and Rachi's going to end the show.
No. He's going to be here.
Okay, so ready?
You're still a host.
2, 3.
Okay, so I guess I'm the one who's ending the show because, my partner just decided to get up and go. And I have no clue why he did that, because he thinks he's a shit or something. Anyways, so final thoughts. I loved what Marc Jacobs did. I'm totally on his side for this. And until next time, this is your host, me and only fashion consultant and stylist Rashi Bindra. Until next time on Elevated Grapes. Bing!
Hey guys, thank you for watching that podcast or that video. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more of us and see some of our behind the scenes stuff, subscribe below.
Yes, hit that little red button thingy that's over there, and hit subscribe and keep following us for a lot more cool fun stuff.
Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you soon.